This is episode 74 of the Sports Business Classroom audio experience. My name is Marlena Rodriguez, and I am an alum of the Sports Business Classroom immersive program from 2021, where I took part in the media and broadcast major. For the next several weeks, I will be hosting an Alumni Takeover series where I highlight some of the people I look up to in my profession. I'm super excited to be reunited with the SBC team again, and I can't wait to share with you all the amazing content we have prepared. Today's guest is the one and only Hannah Peery of the Houston Rockets. Hannah is a rising star in the digital content world who currently works as a social media coordinator for the Houston Rockets. Hannah's story and journey to where she is today is pretty remarkable. She went from studying pre-med in college at University of Florida to now working with a professional sports team. Her journey is unique and one of a kind, as many of ours are. In fact, Hannah didn't even realize creating social media content could become a career. Well, look at her now. I'm so excited to chat with Hannah. I've looked up to her from afar through her own social media channels and those that she manages. And I'm always looking to support other females in this industry, so this is a real treat for me. She has a bright future ahead of her, and you'll be able to hear how passionate she is about her work. One of the things I admire about her is being a strong woman in this industry and understanding the platform she has to inspire others to chase after their dreams. Hannah is doing incredible things in the world of sports content and will surely have some invaluable insights and tips that we can all learn from. So, without further ado, I give you Hannah Peery. Hi Hannah, welcome to SBC Podcast. Thank you for joining us. So happy to have you. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
First of all, I love your background. We were talking a little bit before this, but she's at, her office, guys. So that is not her house, but that would be really nice if you had jerseys. But I just want to, tell everyone how we met, which is kind of a funny story. Guys, I slid into her DMs. It is true. I slid into Hannah's DMs. It's out and about, but people know now, but basically that's how we met. I basically wanted to I feel like it's so important now because just to, relate to other women in this industry. We're going to dive more in, but yeah, I just wanted to tell everyone how we met because I thought it was really cool because, DMs.
Yeah, appropriate, given that I do social media too, so I can respect it. I can respect the DM for sure.
Thank you. But you're currently with the Houston Rockets. You do social media, photography, content creation. I swear you have like many, many hats. The list goes on. But tell us a bit about like how you develop like kind of your expertise, kind of like how you were introduced with sports. Like, were you a sports girl growing up? Someone, dad or brother or cousin? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I have been into sports, passionate about sports pretty much my whole entire life. I started playing basketball actually when I was in kindergarten. Started playing in like an organized league. My mom was my basketball coach. My grandpa was her basketball coach. So it's kind of been a sport that's been in the family for a really long time, but I never imagined myself making a career out of it. I was never good. I mean, I was like decent. I was a good player. I was the captain of our basketball team, but never thought I would like take it D1 or a professional level. Never really looked at it in that way. And I had a lot of interests outside of sports as well. So I didn't really imagine myself making a career out of it. So when I actually started school, I was pre-med for my first year of college,
Wow.
believe it or not. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I did actually think I wanted to be a sports doctor. So I did still kind of want to be in sports, but learned very quickly that it just wasn't for me. The whole medical route, the chemistries, the calculus, none of that I was not having fun at all. I really hated my first year of college, and it was because I was just doing something that I was not passionate about at all in any sort of way. So I actually took a semester off of school to kind of reevaluate and just see like, hey, I know that like doing something I'm passionate about is a priority for me. Like when I decided to do pre-med, I was mainly focused on like, okay, what's going to make me the most comfortable, like the most money. And then I had a lot of people in my family that were in the medical field, so it did make a little bit of sense, but it was never something that me, myself personally was ever really interested in. And so I kind of just started looking at the majors that my school had, and I came across one that said telecommunication. And I was like, oh, this is very interesting. I've always actually did a lot of commercial acting and like theater acting growing up as well. So I was like, okay, like some on-camera stuff that does interest me. So I transferred over to the journalism school and started doing some news broadcasting. That was actually my major, was telecommunication news broadcasting. And I was like, okay, news sounds pretty cool. I think I can do this. Let's see how it works. And so all my classes were creating news packages. I was doing on-camera stuff, behind the camera stuff, writing, radio, kind of doing everything
Wow.
I could to kind of just see what I liked. And then I got my first internship at a news station, learned a whole lot, but also realized that I did not like news at all, not one bit, not even a little bit. I was actually like, okay, I actually hate this. So I was like, okay, where can I kind of transition? I like the creative, hands-on, like media aspect of what I'm doing right now, but where can I transition? And my school, I was fortunate enough at the University of Florida to where they have a really robust sports journalism like program. And even outside of classes, there's a lot of opportunities that you can do as a video producer for our sports teams, sports radio. We have an ESPN Gainesville affiliate, all kinds of things. Like you can host the sports newscast, you can anchor. There's a lot of opportunities. So I switched over
That's
to
awesome.
sports. I was like, this makes a lot of sense. I've always loved sports. Like, why don't I try this? It was just kind of like instantly I was like, this is it. Like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And just fell in love. And I started doing um a lot of video production. That's kind of where I started and where I got my hands on a camera first, was a lot of video production. So if you see like that high quality video from sports teams, like that's what I was doing for the Gators for a really long time. And that's kind of how I learned how to work a camera. And then I learned about social media. Social media was never something that came across my brain as like, oh, I can make a career out of that. And I think it's starting to get to that place now to where people are like, okay, I mean, obviously with influencers and with social media managers becoming such a big thing, I think it's more now something that people recognize as like a career that you can pursue.
I
But I feel like
agree.
even when I was starting college in 2017, it wasn't that big of a thing yet. So there wasn't like, oh, I know exactly this is what I'm going to do. It was kind of like I just fell into it. There was an opportunity within my college where you could work with the sports teams. And so I was like, oh, let me try that. And I was like, this is perfect. And so ended up applying for internships and, eventually interned with ESPN. And then I knew immediately that I would want to do social media when I graduated. So that was kind of the process of me like making my way over to this world and social.
That's awesome. But I feel like so many people can relate because how you started like in the medical field, right? And like in college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do like work in sports, but I was kind of lost because everything you see on TV is coaches, like nothing is behind the scenes that you see unless you're in it, in that room. A lot of people don't know what they want to do, especially like it's hard, right? Like when you're a kid, like, okay, figure out what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you're a kid. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of people can relate how you kind of figured out what you didn't like you said you disliked news very much, which is a plus because you know that you don't want to do that for the rest of your life. So,
Exactly. I'd much rather figure that out in college and when I still have the opportunity to switch it up rather than, okay, I graduated with this degree, all of my experiences in this. Like now, once I have my post grad job, now I figure out I don't like it. So, no, I mean, that is whenever somebody asks like what advice is to like figuring out what your niche is and where you kind of fit in this industry is just try anything and everything that you can possibly get your hands on, and you will start to weed out things. You'll be like, okay, that sucked, this was not as great, like, okay, this was good, but like I still think I can find something a little better. Like you will like feel it out and figure it out. Just keep trying things. Like that's what I did throughout my
yeah,
whole time in college.
that's awesome. That's very good advice. And I think people hear it so much, but it's good to just remind them. Like here's a little reminder. You don't need to have it all
Yeah.
figured out in the beginning, okay, guys?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
But a fun question I wanted to ask, since you're kind of have a camera, the camera girl and camera gear and all that. What's in your camera bag usually? Like, what's your must-haves?
So right now, like one of my main focuses is photography, but a lot of it is also on like organic video and filming like stuff for TikTok, Instagram Reels, whatever it may be. So yes, I do have my camera. Right now I'm shooting with a Canon R5. So I'll have like my camera in my bag, my lenses, different lenses, depending on what it is. Like if I'm traveling, I'll probably bring two lenses. Like I'll bring 24 to 70 and then 70 to 200 and just to be prepared, and then I'll have like a flash with me. But then I also have this fancy light that I'm actually using right now, and it helps me film like different
I like it.
TikToks, and it just makes things look a lot prettier than they do in like real life. And so I always have that with me, and an iPhone stabilizer. I'm like the ultimate social media person. I have like my iPhone stabilizer, my camera, like my phone, like just ready and for anything that could
It
happen.
sounds
So
like you need two extra arms.
yes, yeah, that would be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. But the light is key. Light is key, especially for
Yeah.
TikTok. All these influencers can definitely tell you light is key over here. Also, another question. What was your first camera? I wanted to ask you. Did you have a first
So
camera?
my first camera that I ever shot with was, like I told you, I started off doing video, and kind of the Florida Gators like creative department kind of gave us
Okay.
cameras to work with. So my first one was like a Sony A7S. That's what I shot on like all throughout college. So I would say that's really where I like
Okay.
started.
Nice. So not like an APS-C like crop sensor camera. How like some
Yeah,
people maybe.
yeah, I mean, like when I was younger and I was taking pictures for my family and things like that,
Yeah.
um, like the older Canon bodies, things like that. But I never really took
That's good. You've had all the
photography.
great gear and
Yeah,
that's awesome. So
yeah,
you rolled
yeah.
with it. You mentioned like your process and everything, but I want to go back. Who was like your influence as far as like, people you looked up to, or maybe some like you saw online, or maybe read an article, or you saw them put to work maybe at an NBA game or a game you went to? Like what kind of like was that click that you're like, oh, they inspire me?
I try to think about this, but it kind of like I mentioned before, I didn't even really know this specific position was available. Like I didn't know this was a thing. Kind of like you said, they don't really broadcast these kind of things. Like when you look at sports, you see the coaches, the trainers,
Yeah.
those kinds of things. And I didn't really know this existed. I would say like my inspiration to do this really came from just people and that I met along the way in college and in my internships. And I kind of took little pieces from every person I met, every experience that I had, and put it all together to do what I do now. And even like when I started this job, the things I do on a daily basis are not exactly what like we thought, like my manager and myself, that we thought I was going to be doing, because I came in and he was like, "Oh, you actually have all these extra skills that like we didn't even really know. So you can kind of make this role whatever you want and branch out and try new things." And so I've just been so blessed to have managers and people around me and just like mentors that encourage me to step outside of like my comfort zone and try new things and utilize all of the different skills that I have to come together and create this really unique role that I have here at the Rockets. So I would say it wasn't like a specific person that I was like, I want to be exactly like them. It was just me taking different things from people and like different relationships that I had and different like professionals that trained me and things like that, and just kind of combining it into this vision that I had for myself as a creative.
So, like I said, a lot of students listen to this podcast because basically they look up to people like you and like the guests we have on here. So, if someone was listening and they're in college right now and they're actually looking to do social media, since now, like you mentioned earlier, it's so like broad and can be like a job for people, an opportunity to succeed. What would you like? What steps would you give them? Like if they're in college right now, would you say that like obviously internships are important, but something
Mm-hmm.
outside of that, would you say networking or sliding into someone's DMs?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing first is just diversifying your experiences. and really just trying a bunch of different things. And then once you do find that thing that you're like, okay, this is it. This is what I'm really passionate about. I love this, and I could see myself doing this for the rest of my life. I think that's the most important step. Like finding that one thing that when you come to work every day, it's not going to feel like you're coming to work every day. Like you are just like, this is what I do. It's not like my job. This is just what I do. And that's how I feel about my position. And I know that a lot of people aren't in that same boat. So I feel like super blessed to be able to say that. But I'd say once you identify that one thing that you really want to go after and you're like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I would say relationships are the biggest thing. Like I networking, yes, but I'd say like there's so much more to be said about those like meaningful relationships that you make with people. Like when you do, obviously, internships, experiences, like student volunteer opportunities. That's what I was every weekend, all week. Like as soon as I was out of classes, I was doing some type of sporting event. I was volunteering with college game day as a runner. I was shooting with, shooting video. I was trying out different social media things. Like I was just always meeting people. And I found those people that I really connected with and built a meaningful relationship over time. Some people that you can go to, and like when you have a dilemma that you're in, or like you need some advice, like those people that you can go to. And then eventually all those people start to move up, and you have these connections in different places that are not just like, hey, and when you reach out, it's not just like, hey, can I'm looking for a job. It's like, hey, like, we've had a relationship for a really long time. I'm a hard worker. You know what I can do? Like, could you, and that person will feel comfortable vouching for you. So I would say like, yes, network, like get your name out there. You know, tell people about yourself, but like really focus on those relationships that you can build with people that you can take with you for the rest of your career. And that can be said like networking vertically and horizontally. I think a lot of people get stuck in networking with people who are above them and being like, okay, I'm only networking because I think one day you could be able to help me. But networking amongst your peers and amongst people who are on the same level of you as you is just as important. Because eventually those people are going to be in places that you might want to be one day, and they might learn things that you want to learn. So I would say like not limiting yourself in your networking and really just building meaningful, like lasting relationships.
It's like a broken record. People say that all the time is relationships, but it's so true, especially in this industry. Like it's relationships, and like how you said, it's not about like who's above the ladder, but if you can come up with somebody like your peers, more importantly, I think that's a beautiful thing too. So
Yeah. And like not even really like networking. Like, yes, networking and those relationships really helped me in my career. But I would say the biggest like upper hand that I had when I was applying to jobs, and something that really stood out to people that were hiring, like hiring managers, was just the diversity in my experience. Like, yes, like I would call myself a social media professional, but I can also do photography. I can also do videography. Like, I know how to coordinate social media as well. Like there's just a lot of different things that I took the time to learn and kind of like increase my skill set. And I think that really stood out. And I actually know that stood out. That was actually something that my hiring manager told me. They were like, we really like the fact that you are like a jack of all trades. You kind of know how to do a
yeah.
bunch of different things, and you're able to like fit into our team in that way and help us out in so many different ways and not just this one specific way. So yeah.
So, any students who are listening right now, you basically the resources you need is to just put yourself out there. You don't need any special equipment. Basically, put yourself out there, be hopefully a genuine person, because I feel like people can kind of tell when you're genuine and you're not, and kind of want things. And so I think that's a very important take to have. And Hannah's obviously lived through it, so she'll tell you herself. But okay, let's get into your current. So you're with the Houston Rockets. Your title, like you said, a jack of all trades, but you would say your title mainly is it social media?
Yeah, my official title is social media coordinator.
Yeah. But obviously we know that's not true because, there's so many hats and titles throughout this industry. But
Right.
but what like how did you come across that opportunity? We like you mentioned internships like with ESPN, but how you said like building relationships. Did you have a relationship with the Houston Rockets, excuse me, front office at that time?
No, I found a job online, teamwork online, and my professors at UF were awesome. And actually my supervisor, I worked with our like creative video department for about as soon as I started in the journalism school. So probably like 2.5 years. And so I built a relationship with all the supervisors there, and they like were very confident in my abilities and, really felt like they could vouch for me as a professional and as a creative. So they were looking for ways to help all the students get jobs, but I just felt so blessed that they were helping me get jobs. So it was great to have that relationship with them because they would go out and be like, okay, who do I know at this organization that I could be like, hey, just throwing this name out there, like even just getting a name. Because there's like, for example, we hired for a junior coordinator position a few months ago and we had almost 1,000 applicants for this one position. So it's like,
Wow.
yeah, it's very competitive. And so just being able to get your name into a mix, because it could get buried. You could be the most talented person that applied for this job, but your resume just didn't get viewed because there's just so many. So I was able to have somebody like reach out to somebody with the Rockets and say, hey, there's this girl named Hannah. Just take a look at her resume, take a look at her portfolio. And so I did have someone who was able to kind of like push it along for me, but then the rest was up to me. I had a 3 interview process, and was offered the job a few days later. So yeah, that's how it went for me.
Wow. Well, that, like 1,000 applicants, that is, I think I wouldn't have guessed that number if you would have asked me to guess. Honestly, I probably would have guessed higher. Like,
Yeah.
it probably is higher. I think you're just being generous.
No, I mean that's about what we had, and a lot of them, especially on Teamwork Online, that's where we like
Oh, yeah.
had the listing, and a lot of them don't have a ton of like sports social experience. So narrow that down to the people who actually have like
That
experience or
is
like are
true.
in this industry would be a lot less. So
Yeah, that more expertise, like. But
mhm.
that's really neat how, like, college and like the connections you made, they actually helped you. But like you said, once you got your foot in the door, it was up to you. So no one like held your
Right.
hand. You kind of had to, take it on the reins. But kudos to you. So talking about your media team, you talked about hiring a junior coordinator. What's a media team with a MBA organization look like? For people who have never been behind the scenes, what does that look like? How many of there are you usually? Is it just you who posts on social media? Tell us a bit about that.
Sure. So it actually varies throughout the whole league. Some teams have more resources, so they're able to hire more people. Some teams have a lot less. I know there's a team, at least last season, there was a team in the NBA that only had one social media person, which is just absolutely absurd to me.
Poor person, poor
But
person.
so in the social department specifically, we're a team of four. So we've got a director, two coordinators, and then one junior coordinator. And so we all technically are posting on the accounts, but the people who do the main posting on the Rockets accounts are myself and our other coordinator. And then our junior coordinator comes in and assists with some things here and there. And then our director, if there's like an emergency or something like that, he'll step in because he actually did it. Our director was actually doing it for 7 years before he was elevated and then was able to hire us. But there's only usually just us two posting on the accounts mainly. And then we have our digital video department, which is like our videographers, and we have two digital video producers. Um, but yeah, as far as social goes, it's just the four of us.
Oh, wow. That's really neat. I don't think, like I said, it's behind the scenes. So I don't think anyone would have probably realized unless they asked you up front because it's not like, you're posting of how many people are operating on social. So, but that's
Exactly.
really neat.
Yeah, and we could use 15 people, like honestly, but unfortunately it's just not that way. So
Yeah.
and we do the best we absolutely can and with the resources that we have. So,
Talking about your team also, do you kind of, I guess it depends on the person and like how you are a jack of all trades, but usually if people were in your position and they wish to be, do you kind of have to, is there like a ladder of chain? I know you talked about like you have a director, but when you're a social media coordinator and working those social accounts, do you kind of have the lead to post anything you want knowing they trust you?
yeah, I mean, we have that trust fully, but never is there a time where something, unless it's like a highlight that's like, it's pretty self-explanatory. A highlight from a game, like we clip highlights from a game, but we are always constantly, like we have a group chat and it is constantly active. Like we are always talking to each other. Even our VP is engaged in things that we're doing. I mean, there's so much conversation around what is posted on these accounts because there's so much weight to what we post. I mean, we have millions and millions of followers across all of our accounts. So once you send something out, like it's there. I mean, immediately it's screenshotted. If you make a typo or you say the wrong thing, it's screenshotted, it's there, planted in history forever. So I think a lot of people don't understand the like pressure and the weight that comes along with posting on a big brand account like that. But we are just constantly like chatting with each other, bouncing ideas off of each other, trying to put out the best possible thing that we can every time that we post. There's a lot of conversation that goes on between us, but we also have that like trust from our leaders as well because we've earned it. You know what I mean? You come in here and you earn that trust. And we've got a really talented team of people over here that we've all created some really cool stuff together. So just
That's
constantly
really
talking and collaborating.
Yeah, communication's on a high.
Mm-hmm. Has to be.
Yeah, it has to be. So speaking of like you mentioned, you have millions of followers like on every like social account you have, whether it be Instagram, Twitter, like it just goes up and even more like rising. What when people want to do social media, what's kind of the key factors into growing a social account? Is it hashtags? Is it reels now since TikTok has exploded? Like what's your take on that?
It changes all the time. And that's part of being a social media professional is just being up to date with the different platforms. I mean, the Instagram like CEO is posting a video like every day, it feels like, with new features that are rolling out. And TikTok is adding new features, and Twitter and Facebook, everything is changing every single day. I think the main thing to focus on when you're trying to build an account and really just connect with your audience is just to focus on what, like, just put yourself in your followers' shoes and your fans' shoes and be like, what would I want to see from this team? And just consistently put out engaging, high quality content for your followers. And, the algorithm is going to do the rest. Yes, you can invest more time in reels because that's what they used to say was the most high performing thing. But now it's like almost pretty much all the videos that you post are technically a reel. So it's like, okay, what's happening here? But it's pretty obvious that I think the algorithms across all social media platforms are favoring more organic, natural content rather than like that really high quality stuff nowadays because it's just what people are engaged in. And with TikTok even more so, people just love that like natural like short form, quick moving content, and people just love it and they crave it. And once they consume it and they see it for 10 seconds, it's gone. And then you got to push some more out and just keep feeding your audience. And so, like I said, just giving people what they want to see and allowing them to connect with their favorite athletes. I mean, that's my goal with what I do is I really want to tell these stories of these athletes that we have on and off the court, but just give our fans like this unique view into the lives of like some of their favorite athletes ever and show them kind of who they are as people and not just athletes. So yeah, I think that just staying consistent and giving your fans exactly what they want is something that's going to help you grow.
That's awesome. And I you touched on it a little bit about your goals with like your position, but do you have any other goals? I know, oh my gosh, I know it's like 2023 already. I swear I blink and it's like a new year. It goes by so fast. But do you have any goals for this year for 2023 with your organization and the work you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that my goal is just to continue getting better at storytelling and photography. Those are my two like main focuses right now is those content creation opportunities. Also focusing on some managerial aspects as well, kind of just like content planning, social media, like marketing rollouts, things like that. But during the season, my biggest thing that I focus on is like in-game content that we're posting and then what stories I can tell of these athletes. So really just trying to demonstrate like here. And last season, I actually got to do a really incredible, like amazing access day in the life with one of our players. And so I actually went to his apartment. We started off at his apartment, did like a whole like starting at 8 a.m. like this is what I'm doing. I just ate breakfast. I'm going to practice. I rode with him in his car to shoot around, back to his apartment, showed him getting ready for the game, picking out his outfit. Then the whole game is pregame routine, like showing that I have the capability to tell these stories in a way that like represents our brand well, builds that relationship between like fan and athlete, fan and the Rockets, and it's something that's going to stick with them forever. Like when this player, and he's a very talented player, like everybody expects him to do very well in the future. So when he's like whatever all-star level, people are gonna be like, oh, remember when he was a rookie and he did that day in the life and he had this apartment and this car, it's something that's going to be like in history. So my goal is to just create these stories for our athletes and continue like humanizing them basically, and showing that there's so much more to them than this sport that they play. It's a big part of their lives, but they're also just like us actually. And so that's kind of my goal, was to really just tell the stories of these athletes in a way that hasn't been done before, and that our fans can really connect with and relate to.
That's really well said. Storytelling is key, especially like you said, social media now, it's so organic. So
Mm-hmm.
that's well said. Speaking of day in the life, what is a day in the life in Hannah Peery, with Hannah Peery? What is a day in the life with you?
Sure. I guess the most exciting day to do would be like a game day. So game day would be, we come in for our shoot around, which is where the guys come in and they do whatever they're gonna do for that day, whether it's some shooting drills, going over film. It's like a shorter version of a practice. So our social team will come in, we'll go in and we'll cover that, get whatever content that we need for the day. If there's like a marketing initiative that we need to do a little bit more planning around, like a theme night or something like that, we'll take care of that and edit that content, get it posted. Then we'll go home for like a little bit of a break, get some lunch, get ready for the game. Then we'll be back at around 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and that's when we'll huddle together, kind of get a game plan ready for the night. Talk about if there's a celebrity that's going to be in the building for the game, if there's a certain theme night activation that's happening, um, whatever it may be, et cetera, et cetera. Kind of just planning for the night. And then the players start arriving. So the players start walking in. And we have a NBA photographer that takes those photos and sends them over to us, and we'll get them posted, get those walk-ins up. Everybody loves those. Players love those. We love those. We've got some really like well-dressed guys on our team that are like league fits regulars.
I
So it's really
agree.
fun. Yeah, they're really fun guys. And so we'll get those walk-ins posted, and then we'll cover their pregame individual workouts and whatever content that may be, photos, some organic content. If our video producers are down there and they send us over something, we'll kind of just, as we go, whatever content we get, just communicating and, deciding when and where to post each thing. And just continuing to do that up until the game starts. And we'll cover the pregame, like um pregame like shoot around, and then we'll cover like starting five, all those kind of things. And then once that's over, once tip off happens, then myself and my team, we go and sit at our table in the media section, and then we cover the game from our computer. And it's crazy because I say like I've never like actually watched a Rockets game, because my head is just like in my computer the whole time. I'm like typing away, clicking away, clipping highlights, writing captions, like pulling photos, combining all of it to tell a story. So it's
Yeah.
really, I'm just like focusing on all of that. And it's just fast paced. Like the game just goes by so quickly because I'm just, you know, working away the whole entire time. And then after the game, depending on the outcome of the game, we post our win stuff, we get our memes out. And if we don't win, then it's a little bit less work. But yeah, that's pretty much kind of how a game day goes for me.
Wow. Kudos to you. And hopefully one of these days you can actually enjoy a Rockets game.
Yeah.
But that's a really like neat day in the life that no one would really, expect from morning to night. So unless,
Yeah.
like you said, you're part of a sports team and living through it. So you're in a professional NBA organization. Being in a social media department, I have been in a front office before, but for people who don't know, when social media, do you work? I assume you work with every department. You're getting emails nonstop, whether it be graphics or maybe to come shoot like a sponsorship event. How does that work?
Yeah, so like I was just saying, we have a lot of other responsibilities outside of covering the team. For example, I split travel with our other social media coordinator. So he's on the road right now for a week and a half. So if something comes up to where they need a shot of a retail item or corporate has an event and they need a photographer, we actually have an event coming up this Monday for Martin Luther King Day. And I'll be going and shooting pictures of it and using them for our social media. And they'll also be used in end of year recaps and our yearbook and things like that. So we do have a lot of responsibilities outside of actually covering the team that kind of just they come along with the job.
That's really neat. I kind of thought you kind of traveled with the team personally, like every single trip, but it's good to know that you guys switch off for no one,
Yeah.
gets homesick, I guess. I guess.
Yeah, it's I think not even so much of being homesick, just being like tired. It's very draining. We get in like the last trip I was on, we had a back to back on one end of it, a 7 day trip, back to back on one end, back to back on the end of it too. So it's just a lot. You get into cities very late and start work early and um it's a lot of work. I mean, it's really rewarding. I enjoy it so, so much, but it's nice to be able to step back from it a little bit and kind of reset and, feel fresh going into the next one as well. So traveling is definitely one of my favorite aspects of this job. But it's a lot of work and it's definitely not for the weak. And you got to really take care of yourself mentally and physically, but it's completely worth it to me. And that's where I feel like I've been able to get some of the most personal content opportunities and just like building relationships with those people on the basketball operations side of things, including the players, but also the staff. Just, you're really in it. You guys are all together at 4 a.m. on a plane and you guys really just get to know each other really well. So it's a unique situation to be in for sure.
That is intense and sounds very draining. 4 a.m. flights, getting into different
Yeah.
cities. But yeah, strong persevere, right? So it's not for the weak at all. So you shot on many cameras. You're shooting on a Canon right now, but do you have like a favorite camera that you kind of love using, or have you tested out anything that kind of like catches your eye?
I mean, I'd say my favorite camera that I've ever shot on is the one I'm shooting on right now, is the R5. That's kind of what I've been learning on, so I'd say I'm a little biased. Um, but yeah, the Canon R5 has been really good to me. I've been able to try a bunch of different things, be inspired by different creators that I see on Instagram and be like, okay, I want to try that. And learning from also people within the creative team that we have here. Like I said, we've got a lot of really talented creators here and we all have our specific things that we're really good at. So being able to just like try out different lenses that they have or different filters or different techniques that they have, that's been kind of my favorite part of this process of learning photography is just being able to learn from the people around me.
That's really neat. And you talked about how you do personal content also. What is something that you're trying to do, at least for the new year? Any personal like goals as far as your personal like socials that you're trying to kind of grow?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about kind of giving a little bit more of an inside look to what I do, kind of the things that we're talking about right now. Because a lot of what I do is post like my work. But I'd really like to give people who are interested like an inside look into what my day-to-day life looks like and kind of like maybe talk a little bit more about how I got here and just like sharing that information a little bit more. It's something that I definitely want to do. Whether I have time to invest into it is another question, but hopefully that is something that I'm able to invest a little bit more time into this year.
Yeah, time is not on our side sometimes.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, there's
exactly.
only so many hours in a day.
Yep, exactly. And you always got to set aside time. That's something that I learned the hard way when I first started off in sports. Is just like really setting aside time for yourself to just like step away from things for a little bit and take care of yourself mentally and physically. Because even though you do really love, I mean, I feel like most people who work in sports do it because they're passionate about it. So it's something doing something you're passionate about. It's easy to just like put everything that you have and all of your time into it. But then it gets to a point where you might burn out for a little bit. And one of my goals this year is to like never get to that point. Just have a really good balance of like, okay, I've been working really hard. Let me take a day to like do some self-care and, go for a walk and do some yoga and just like really reset and get out of that like busy, busy, busy mindset that you have working in sports. So
Yeah,
yeah, I feel like I've been able to find that balance.
that is well said. Speaking of like work life balance, especially people that want to be where we are, working with professional athletes, NBA organizations, the sky's the limit, but they're so invested, rightfully so. You should chase after your dreams. but you get so kind of tunnel vision, right? And you kind of block out all the other noise. But how long did it take you a while to figure out that work-life balance? And what do you have to like say for someone who's kind of figuring it out still?
I definitely don't think I have it down pat. Like, I don't think you can ever find that perfect balance. It's always gonna be ups and downs and just doing what's best for you at that right time, at that time and place that you're in. Like I was saying before, just really being proactive about it and not waiting until you get to that point where you're so burnt out that you don't want to do anything anymore, because it does take time and it's hard to get out of that place and that maybe like creative slump that you may have. So just really like being proactive and being like, okay, I've done this amount of work this week, I was very productive, I'm proud of myself, let me take some time to step back and just not think about sports, not think about work for a day if you have it, or whatever, a few hours if you have it. So just setting aside that time before it gets to the point where you have to and you're burnt out.
That's excellent advice. I always need to be reminded about a work-life balance because, like you, we love what we do, but sometimes you just need to breathe, take a step back, go for a walk. How simple is that? Just go outside, go touch some grass.
Exactly. Exactly.
So speaking of advice, I hope everyone that's listening is like taking your advice because it's so well said. But like in your position, what do you see for the future for yourself?
You know, just growing, as much as I can every single day. Um, I don't really have an exact vision of, obviously elevating within my field and trying new things. But I think right now I'm just focusing on where I'm at right now and showing up every day as my best self and giving 100%. And that's just kind of, I feel like the growth and the elevation comes along with that. If you're showing up every single day and giving 100% and just being yourself, then you're going to get that elevation and that growth that you ultimately deserve and are looking for. So right now, just focusing on doing the best I possibly can here and now where I am.
That's good. Live in the present. Soak it all
Yeah.
in. Because,
Yep.
like I said, a year goes by and I'm like, it's already 2023. So people need to live in the moment. I agree.
Exactly.
But you've done so much work. Like you post so much content. There's content everywhere in your guys' office, the Houston Rockets organization. Is there anything that kind of you're proud of or kind of like you're like, oh, that was a really cool moment? Just a piece of work that you're most proud of?
So the day in the life that I was talking a little bit about, that's definitely one of my favorite pieces of content that I've ever done. I feel like it's a really unique storytelling opportunity that I haven't really gotten to match yet in that way, in the specific kind of category that that's in. I saw that project through from, coming up with the idea, pitching it to everybody that needed to approve it. Writing a script for it, having a meeting with the player beforehand, being like, okay, this is what we're going to do, filming it by myself throughout the whole entire day, and then editing it and posting it and planning the entire rollout across all of our platforms. So I oversaw that project from, ideation to completion almost entirely by myself. So I am really proud of that, but I'm also really proud of our schedule release video that we were able to do this summer for this current season that we're in. It was just a huge collaborative project amongst all of our departments here. So many people touched it and had a part in it, and I was just extremely proud of the product that came out of it. And it was really just historic the way we were able to pull it off. We actually got 5 players to act in our video, which is almost unheard of. Getting access to 5 players to be in a video and act and memorize lines is just insane. And then on top of that, we also got our general manager and our head coach to be in it as well. So
Wow.
just a lot of buy-in from all over the organization, and our fans absolutely loved it. Part of the script writing, I was in charge of the script mostly and kind of writing the lines and incorporating different aspects of, Rockets history, memes, jokes, things like that. And a lot of those things we pulled from our fans and were like inside Twitter jokes that our Twitter, like Rockets Twitter people came up with, or nicknames that they came up with and things like that. So being able to incorporate those and giving our fans like a hands-on like part of this video that was ultimately for them. So I'm just proud of like everybody who was involved in that, and just like honored to have been a part of such a big project.
Yeah, that is awesome. I agree it's tough having players buy in, especially 5, at least even 1. But
Yeah, exactly.
the organization, that was an awesome project. And from you seeing that from ideation to completion, it doesn't happen all the time because people, have to earn that and have to like show their work, but that's really neat. For other girls who are watching this and getting advice from you, what do you want to tell them for the next like female generations? Like females in this industry, I feel like are always sticking together. Like me and you, I found you and I slid into your DMs, like I said, and connected with you. And Hannah is a really dope person, guys. Like if you haven't already noticed by this episode, she's amazing. But what advice do you have for other females coming up?
That's really sweet of you, first of all. Thank you. You're super dope too. I'm glad that we connected. I think that my biggest advice is like, you deserve to be here. Like you deserve a seat at the table. And it is scary coming into a male dominated field, but it's also empowering, in a sense, just knowing that like you have a different set of experiences and a different set of opinions that you can offer, and they are really valuable, and you just have to know that coming in, and that your opinions and your experiences, they deserve to be heard and considered in everything that's happening in sports. Whatever area of sports you're trying to get into, you deserve to be here. And it's getting so much better every single day, and the women that are in sports and paving that way and sticking together and making their voices heard, they're setting it up better for the future generation of women that are going to come in after us. So just, I would say the same thing to women who are already in sports and maybe experiencing some difficulties, because it does happen. And it's something that I was like, oh, that can't possibly happen. How could, women be treated differently just because they're a woman? It was just something that I couldn't fathom in my brain until you actually experience it. And just like standing your ground and knowing, like I said, that you deserve to be here, is the biggest thing.
That was so well said. I really enjoyed this episode with you, and I appreciate you so much for taking the time for coming and joining the SBC Audio Experience podcast. And I really, it was so great meeting you, and I'll definitely be in your DMs. Actually, we have each other's phone numbers, so we're good now. There
we go. We've graduated to text message.
To text message.
Yeah.
But thank you so much.
I'm super happy to be here. It was great talking to you. And thank you for thinking of me and just having me on. It's been awesome.
Yeah. And again, for anyone who wants to connect with you, what are your socials? Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me with my first and last name on pretty much every social media, Hannah Peery. And more than happy to speak with anybody who is aspiring to be a social media sports professional. I'm always open to giving out advice and networking and those kind of things. So my DMs are open, as you know.
Her DMs are open. But Hannah, thank you so much, and good luck the rest of the season. Don't forget to take a walk, please. And I'll definitely be talking to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Sports Business Classroom Audio Experience with Hannah Peery. I want to personally thank Hannah for talking with us today. She has inspired me to create more organic content and create a day in the life of my own one day. She also taught me how important it is to build meaningful relationships, because you never know where that conversation can take you in your career. Also, it was a great reminder to take a step back from work sometimes, to not get burnt out. Find that work-life balance for you. It can be as simple as going for a walk to clear your mind and resetting your creative thinking. That's it for today. I hope this episode inspires you through your journey in the business of basketball. See you next time on the Sports Business Classroom Audio Experience.